Hey guys, got a new microphone because the other one broke the headset. Oh, no way. And today we'll be reacting to a bunch of geography now, places, videos. This is gonna be a reaction. I'm gonna do a live stream now, so let's do it. Videos. Okay, reacting videos. Watch my stream. Okay, educational. Yep, and then confirm and go live. All right, time to begin watching. So, hey guys, welcome to my stream. We'll be reacting to Geography Now videos. Today's gonna be a reaction stream. The first one's gonna be Afghanistan. And before we start watching Geography Now, Afghanistan is particularly important to me. My mom, she's not native to Afghanistan, but she grew up and her grandparents grew up in Afghanistan, Kabul, and during the 70s when the Soviets were invading, they immigrated to America, and they speak Farsi and everything. Yeah, my whole family's Uzbek, but there are Uzbeks that was in Afghanistan. Well, my dad is from Tashkent, Uzbekistan. Um, so yeah, let's get started.
Welcome to the first episode of Geography Now. We're going to go through the list of all the internationally recognized sovereign nations of the world, and we're going to do it alphabetically, which means our first episode is going to be on Afghanistan.
It's time to learn geography now!
I've never watched any of their videos just for the purpose of reacting to them for the first time. So this is my first experience with you guys, so let's get started.
That's the intro song. I hope you liked it. I worked really hard recording it with my friend Bill. So today's going to be Afghanistan. I'm actually really glad we're getting this country covered because it's a very complex and deep country and we can't cover all.
Let's see, how long ago was this made? 2014, so it's a bit outdated. Just make sure all these HD.
All of it in 10 minutes, so I'm going to try to do my best. Before we get into anything though, let's dissect the flag. The Afghani flag is a tricolor band of three different colors, red, black, and green. The red representing the blood of those who fought for Afghanistan, the black representing the obscure and difficult past that they've had, and the green representing hope and a future, and Islam as it is the state religion. In the middle of the flag is the Afghani emblem.
The green that's associated with Islam, I feel like it started with the beginning of the religion when they first caliphate. So let me see, Rashidun Caliphate flag. Never mind, it was just black. I'm pretty sure it was green though. Which one is green though? Caliphate green flag. Some flags. Oh, Fatimids. That's not that's not good. For Sunnis, but I don't know. There was some caliphate that had Umayyads were white. I know that. Abbasids were all black, but I'm pretty sure Rashidun was green. When comparing the other to all three caliphates, I think that was green. I don't know. I think that's how associated. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I'm no historian.
Not a future, and Islam as it is the state religion. In the middle of the flag is the Afghani emblem. Now this is where things get a little difficult, so bear with me. On the emblem is a mosque with two little miniature Afghani flags on the side, which by the way makes Afghanistan one of the only two countries in the world that has a flag with miniature versions of its own flag on its own flag. On the side are sheaves of wheat. On the top is the Shahada, or the Muslim creed. On the bottom is the name of Afghanistan, written in Arabic. And on top of that is the Arabic year of 1298, written in Arabic numerals, which also in the standard Gregorian calendar is 1919.
Wait, let me go back a little bit. So the Afghanistan flag is the most changed flag throughout the years, and of course, it recently did change to when the Taliban took over. But let me show you, Afghanistan. Afghanistan flags. And flag of Afghanistan. So they had loads of flags throughout the years, historical flags. So it was originally black. Did not have official flags, but you could see 1880s black, and then they had that first symbol, which is the mosque, or what we Muslims call masjid. Um, and then it would change. You see the tricolor starting the 1920s. I think this is when they were trying to modernize the kingdom of Afghanistan, when they tried modernizing during the 1920s. And then they have the communist flag. You see, not this is not the communist flag, but they're and then they became a republic. So kingdom of, you can see kingdom of Afghanistan. Anglo-Afghan wars. Where's the communist one? They had a communist one. Oh, they, after the kingdom of Afghanistan, they had, I'm pretty sure they had coup, and then it became the Emirate of Afghanistan, and you see these different colors. Then the kingdom of Afghanistan, back again. Republic. This is when they became a republic. And then you see so many flags. Oh my god. They have the communist one, and then they had another communist one. And then you see the Soviet invasion when Democratic Republic, and the Taliban took over 90s, and then 2001 happens, and then you get that, and then today. So it's crazy. They like wait. Which country has the most flag changes? I'm pretty sure Afghanistan is number one. Yeah, it's Afghanistan. 122 years, changed 30 times.
Written in Arabic numerals, which also in the standard Gregorian calendar is 1919.
Yeah, Islamic year, it means after Hijrah. So how, you know how Christians, after the death of Christ, they start counting years? After the our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam immigrated from Mecca and Medina, the pilgrimage there, which would mean Hijrah, and they would ever since that moving from there, they would count after that. So instead of the death of somebody, they would count from the time they moved from Mecca, which was the city, to another city called, at the time, Yathrib. I'm bad at explaining this. I'm no historian or anything. I am Muslim, so I know this stuff. Which I know it like completely. It's just that I'm really bad at explaining things, which I really try working hard on fixing. But
it was the year that Afghanistan was relinquished from its British protectorate status and became an internationally recognized sovereign nation known as Afghanistan. In terms of its political geography, Afghanistan is located in the Central Asian region, surrounded by 6 other countries, technically 7 if you consider the Jammu Kashmir region part of India, but Pakistan will tell you it totally is not, but we'll discuss that in another video. Now when you look at the shape of Afghanistan, it just kind of looks like a big amorphous blob in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, I don't know if they're going to talk about it, but they the reason for that is all the countries surrounding it. The Russians took over Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and then that's my sister. They took over those countries and got and the British took over India and Pakistan, modern day India and Pakistan. So all these countries around them were shaping Afghanistan's borders. So these aren't technically naturally occurring borders. They were shaped around them, forming the modern day borders. Especially with the Anglo-Afghan wars, the 3 of them, I think.
But then when you look at the northeast, you start to see this long, narrow stretch of land that kind of reaches out into the Hindu Kush mountain range. And you might ask yourself, why does Afghanistan have that long panhandle? And the reason why is kind of technically because England and Russia. See, back in the 1800s, the British and the Russians were
called the Great Game.
competing against each other to see who could amass the largest global empire in terms of colonization and influence. Russia took over what are now known as many of the Central Asian countries as Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, while the British took over many of the South Asian regions such as India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Now when it came to Afghanistan, things were a little difficult because the Afghani people...
Hey, KenVox26, welcome to my stream. We're reacting to geography in Afghanistan. Thanks for coming in. since you just joined in Afghanistan, that's where my mother's side is from, and we're reacting to that. We're going to go through a bunch of geography now videos for at least an hour or two. So
really did not want to be taken over. It was also a really crucial point on the map because essentially it was the area where the British and Russian empires got really close to each other. Eventually the British kind of took over at the end of the 19th century, much to the reluctance of the Afghanis. However, they still had to distinguish the borders between Afghanistan and the rest of the other nations in the
there's this like story about how in one of the wars, there was this girl or woman, I forgot. Like I only heard the story once, so I don't really remember most of it. My dad is from Uzbekistan and my mom is from Afghanistan. My dad's like Uzbek from Uzbekistan, but he wasn't from specifically from Uzbekistan. He was born in China. Because my great grandparents moved from Uzbekistan to China during the Communist Revolution, in Russia. Because is it too loud? Let me try lowering it. I have a suppressor on. Is it loud for you? Or low? It's too low. Let me try filter, edit. Okay, how's it now? Is it better now? Hello. So basically, my family moved from. Let me try fixing this. My family moved from Uzbekistan to China, and that's when my grandparents and my parents are. Yeah, little maybe. I don't know how to increase it. Wait. Filters. I'll try speaking more loud because I've been testing my mic because this is a new mic. This is a completely new mic. So like I literally just got this a few hours ago. It came in the mail. So is this better if I put it closer? This you're my test. You're my first viewer, and you're gonna be my test subject. uh, so I'm putting it more closely, and I'm sorry if you can't hear me. I'll try lowering the volume for this. So I'll put it a little bit lower, and tell me if you can't hear it. I'll put it higher. There, it's better. Okay, thanks.
the empire. When it came to Pakistan, or back then British India, the British decided to use the Durand Line, and then when it came to the Russian Empire, they decided to use the Panj and Palmyra rivers. Now the thing is, when both the empires drew these lines,
Probably the only time the British has drawn borders based on geography. If you look at Africa, literally it's just straight up lines. They literally used rulers on a map and just drew lines. I'm surprised they even acknowledge that. Cause if you see, let me show you a picture of map of lines in Africa. Images. If you look at this, you can see. Look at Algeria, straight line, straight line. Libya, straight line, straight line. You look at all this like weird ass shapes. They don't acknowledge any geographic regions, so, and that's a problem for many countries in Africa, because you see that I saw a video a while back how Nigeria can't drive. They can't transport anything from Nigeria to Cameroon or Chad or Niger. I don't know how to pronounce that country. Through regular transport because of mountains and like major border problems, and because of that they use other modes of transportation, which is more expensive. And you see, and that's like one of the roles. Oh, thank you for following. Thanks for following. And and you see that I'm surprised they didn't do that for Afghanistan. But since it is a sovereign nation and they somehow didn't conquer it, it is the graveyard of empires for a reason. Like I'm surprised they didn't, because they did it by the
lines,
rivers.
they technically didn't touch each other in the northeast and left a huge, long, narrow buffer zone, which is now today known as the Wakhan Corridor. By default, it was given to Afghanistan, and to this day, the Wakhan Corridor plays a very crucial role in Afghanistan's geography because for a very, very small 20 or so mile border at the very end of the Wakhan Corridor is a border with China. Now, I know 20 miles doesn't really sound like much, but in the world of geopolitical analytics, that can be a very
Oh, with the border with China, that's actually fairly recent. As soon as the communists took over in China, they started like during the 1950s. They were just expanding. They took over, they conquered Tibet, and they're expand. They had a war with India actually, over the borders, and they own a part of Kashmir. So if you look at a picture of Kashmir, uh, Kashmir, uh, images. Look, you can see. Oh, that's a bad picture. Ah, there we go. So this part is occupied by Pakistan. This is occupied by India, and then they as soon as decolonization happened. But then when China rose to prominence during the 1950s and 60s, by expanding. Once they conquered Tibet, they also conquered this part. They had a war with India over it. I'm pretty sure they won, and that's why they have that. But yeah, it was crazy times.
very important thing. Now, when it comes to physical geography, Afghanistan has a large, vast array of different kinds of landscapes. However, the large portion of the country is actually mountainous, with the Hindu Kush mountain range dominating the northeast regions and the central regions of the country. In fact, the snowmelt from these mountains accounts for the vast majority of the complex, immense river systems that flow throughout Afghanistan, allowing their country to have lush green valleys where most of their agricultural sector can be found. Now, despite all the rivers and water reservoirs,
Most of the agriculture, though, is like if you see during the 1960s and 70s, the hippie movement in America, they would go to Afghanistan to get Kush, to marijuana, opioids. And I think Afghanistan, before the Taliban started restricting it and everything, like they would sell so much weed and whatever it is, Afghanistan, and like opioids, opium, cultivation, production. Opium production. Let's see. Around 90% of the world's opium comes from Afghanistan. That's how much it is. Like that's all. The whole thing's a black market. I'm pretty good at geography, except like more European, Asian, and North American. I'm from North America, New York, so I only know that. When it comes to Latin America, I know a little bit. And when it comes to Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, it's just I'm trying to study more of it, but mainly it's Asia and Europe because I'm like interested in it. Yeah.
Afghanistan still remains a relatively dry nation. In fact, the further south you go, closer to the Kandahar region, almost immediately after you pass the Dori River, you hit the Sistan Basin, which is basically what geologists speculate may have actually been a large body of water at some point, but is now a dry, desolate desert wasteland. Nonetheless, with the arable land that it does have, Afghanistan is still able to produce some of the world's best produce, including pomegranates, almonds, apricots, and poppy. That's right, for the past 300 years, Afghanistan has been a leading nation in...
Favorite country in Asia and Europe? Well, for Europe, my favorite, I don't have a particular favorite in Europe. I have it depends. So if I like to split it up in time period. So if I'm thinking about early 1800s, my favorite is France because of Napoleon. Now, modern day country, I like Germany because of how everything works. Like I was always interested in Germany, because of like I was always fascinated of its history, how it became Holy Roman Empire, First German Empire, Nazis, like how someone rose to that prominence, but like the industrialization and everything to do with it. Because as soon as Germany was formed, they took over everything. Even now, if you think of the EU, Germany basically owns the EU because of its economic power. Um, but for Asia, I would think I don't have a favorite for Asia. Actually, I like researching Uzbekistan because that's where my dad's from, so it's a bit biased for that. But I would say I'm also interested in Turkey because of its history, Ottoman Empire, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, and all that stuff. That's my sister. She's a. I'm streaming.
Are you doing Minecraft?
No, I'm reacting.
Actually?
Say hello to my sister. Come.
Wait, are the people actually on there?
Yeah. This guy named Ken Brox 26.
One person?
Yeah.
Oh.
I just started. I'm a new streamer.
Oh.
So yeah. This is my
Hi,
sister.
that one person that somehow led me to watch him.
Yeah. She's mean to me. Close the door.
Oh, you mean me?
Okay. All right. So yeah. I'm always fascinated about those. I'm. Yeah.
Opium production.
All right.
In terms of its demographics, Afghanistan has just about 31 million people, or roughly a little bit smaller than the size of Canada.
You would see a higher population in countries like this. When a country has low development, you would see higher birth rates because you could see like if most people are rural, not a lot of people are urbanized and live in the city, and because of that, they all own farms and everything, and children are more likely to die. So if you have more children, the higher the chance of one of them is going to survive, and more of a chance for them to help you out, help you on the farm and everything. But in the USA, you see birth rates declining and population decreasing because people are only having one kid and they know it's going to survive. They don't need multiple kids. And since the population is declining, because right now the country USA has 300 million people, but people are having one kid. Yeah. They think of more people, more helping hands. Because if you like for example, I used to have family in Afghanistan, and they would have 13 kids. Only 7 of them would live, and but those 7 would be helpful for them. So you would tend to see a higher birth rates in low developed countries, but high mortality rates for them. So it sort of like evens out. In the USA, you see low mortality rates, but also low birth rates, especially with Japan. Actually, Japan is crazy right now, and a lot of countries are actually not starting to think immigration is not a problem anymore, because if you get more immigrants, you get more workforce, and also the population is aging in more developed countries. So people are more caring more for the elderly than young people.
The slight majority of these people identify as ethnically Pashtun, or people from the Pashtun tribe. They speak the Pashtun language known as Pashto.
You see that in Pakistan too. Afghanistan, there's no such thing as an Afghan in Afghanistan. It's like there's Pashtun, Tajiks, Uzbeks like me, and majority is Pashtun, I'm pretty sure. But they also the state government speaks Persian, a dialect of Persian called Farsi.
Now, there are some other ethnic minorities like Uzbeks and Tajiks and Hazaras. However, the interesting thing is that the majority of the people, about 85%, including the Pashtuns, speak Dari. Dari is actually...
we call it Farsi. We don't call it Dari. Yeah, India or China. But China is dominating right now with the Belt and Road Initiative. India is going to be a major power player. India and China are like are rivals, though, geopolitical rivals. So like how like for Germany and France, they try one-upping each other every so often when it comes to the EU, and it's like that because they're close proximity. They're actually trading. Let me show you. String of pearls. Images. So China is making a bunch of these ports. Wait, let me try. Let me try finding a good picture that I can maximize. Open image in new tab. Dang. I hate when I'm doing this, switching it up. Quora. Okay, let me zoom in. How do I? I'm so bad. Shift scroll. There we go. So China is building ports all along around India. They're trying to isolate India, so they can get a greater advantage when it comes to trade. So they're they're long-term rivals. And Pakistan, since Pakistan and India hate each other, Pakistan is allying itself more to China, and the USA allying more itself to India. So you see a little bit of conflict already. They already had wars too between each other. Reset. Okay. So yeah. But if you'll see some conflict between India and China, I feel like in a few years.
A dialect of the Persian language, Farsi. So that means someone who speaks Dari can actually interchangeably travel between Afghanistan
and Iran. Yep, Afghans and Iran. The thing is Dari is a dialect of Persian, so they could understand Iranian, but it will just be harder. Like, there's some words that are different.
And Iran without really having any trouble being understood. Interesting side note, there is one last living Jew living in all of Afghanistan.
He left. I'm pretty sure he left, that last Jew.
I'm not even joking.
It's from 2014,
his name is
so it's old, but I'm pretty sure he left.
Zablon Simintov. He lives in Kabul. He used to own a restaurant, and he maintains the last synagogue in all of Afghanistan. The locals there know him just as that one Jew guy, and they're cool with him. They're just like, hey, Zablon. Which brings us to our final segment, the friend zone. Afghanistan has a very interesting way in how it interacts with other countries. Now, because of the whole language thing, Afghanis and Iranians have typically kind of had somewhat of a cultural similarity and resonance with each other. However, they also have had some controversy. Now, Pakistan and India are
the controversy because Iran is mostly Shia Muslim and Afghanistan is Sunni Muslim. So religiously, they're like Protestant and Catholic. Like, they don't really get along. I mean, Protestants and Catholics get along with each other, but they don't. Like, similarly, they're different, but they're part of the same, like, like, Islam is this, but there's two sects of Islam, and, like, they don't go good with each other.
The biggest business partners of Afghanistan. However, again, there's some drama there as well.
Pakistan and Afghanistan have a lot of Pashtuns in between them, and so there's a lot of cultural similarities, and they both have the same religion. So Muslims, there's two sect. Okay. I didn't. So let me show you. There's two different types of, not types, but sects of Islam. So you know how there's, I don't know if you know this, but Protestants and Catholics for Christianity. So there's Catholics and Protestants. There's Sunni and Shia map. Images. So let me see. No, actually. Okay, this is a good picture actually. Open image in your tab. So there's two. Sunni is the majority. Like, most Muslims are Sunni Muslim. And they believe that, because I'm a Sunni Muslim, they believe that after our prophet died, that the successor, not the next prophet, he was our last prophet, we believe, but that the leader of all the Muslims should be the most knowledgeable, while the Shia believe it should be the nephew of the prophet, because the prophet did not have any sons. But his nephew should his nephew should be the next leader. So there was Sunni Muslims chose one of the companions and close friends of the Prophet to be the leader because he was the most wisest, while Shias believe that it should have been his family member by dynasty. So, and because of that split, you see a lot of Iran being Shia, and Iraq has a majority, not majority, but a lot of Shias too. But all these other Muslim countries are Sunni, except Oman. They're a different type. There's a third type, but it's not like that big. Um, and you mostly see most Shias actually live here, and there's more Sunni than Shia. Do you understand? Do you get it? No, I don't know if I'm making myself clear. I'm really bad at explaining things, but uh, like it's more political difference where they're like, oh, this guy should have been leader, and then the other guys like other ones. Um, there are different mushrooms for both sex, because, um, but there are you spell it. So there, it is complicated. It is complicated. I would like to avoid the subject because I am streaming it. I don't want to anything controversy, but it's a lot of complication. A lot of complication.
Now, when it comes to their best friend, Afghanistan considers Turkey their best friend. They've cooperated with each other peacefully for over 100 years, and there's an old Afghani saying, no Afghani was ever killed by a Turkish bullet, and no Afghani trained by a Turk ever betrayed his country. So in conclusion, I guess this is the last segment.
A lot of Muslim countries, except Arab countries, admire Turkey because of its development. And Turkey is the only full democracy. Tunisia is getting there though. Full Muslim majority democracy in the Middle East, and a lot of people admire Turkey because of it became developed not through means of oil, because Saudi Arabia, it got rich through oil, but through hard work and labor, and it developed on its own. It didn't need oil to make itself rich, and how developed it is compared to them. So there's a lot of admiration from other countries.
Putting aside all of the modern day controversies, Afghanistan is actually a very beautiful country with a very rich and vibrant yet often hidden cultural and historical past that very often goes overlooked. And that's our objective here at Geography Now.
There are castles from Alexander the Great's time, Greek castles and Greek artifacts in Afghanistan, which is it's crazy. It's surprising.
We want to shine light on the obscure and put on display the often neglected yet fascinating attributes of every region of the world. We hope you did you justice. Stay tuned. Albania is coming next.
Albania's next? Okay. That's another Muslim country. Well, Muslim majority. Let's see. Let's put that next. Let me just close all this.
You know how in high school there's always like that one little emo kid that just kind of keeps to themselves and sits in the corner, but then about 10 years later at the reunion you find out they actually have a lot of friends and they're pretty cool? That's kind of like what Albania is.
It's time to learn geography.
Now you know the drill. Before anything, let's dissect that flag. As you can see, the Albanian flag is actually pretty simple. It's just a red banner with a double-headed eagle emblem on top of it. The red representing bravery and courage, and the double-headed eagle is an emblem that the Albanians have claimed that they have historically used to identify themselves as a people group.
Albania was originally a Christian country, and they used that flag before until it got conquered by the Ottomans. Oh, suppose there's never been Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, or... Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's completely true. If without the British though, India would never be united, because there's so many ethnicities, cultures, even religions. Because you don't hear about the Rajput religion. I think it's Rajput. I don't want to get canceled, but there's different. There's not just Hindu. Most of them, majority of it is Hindu and Muslim. They have a lot of Muslims there, so it would be a collection of countries. It would never, without the British, it would never been united.
Even though there may be some other countries that would argue.
Oh yeah. So back to what I was saying, Albania used to be a Christian country until the Muslim Ottoman Turkish Empire conquered it, and it would slowly convert to Islam through Sufi orders who would convert them, like the Bektashis. But the Ottomans, Turks, they never forced. There a lot of people. There's been cases of where they would force convert, like through janissaries and stuff like that, but not through like like you become Muslim or else you're out of here or we're gonna kill you. Um, I thought United divided them because I thought British divided them. No, no, no. The British divided and conquered them, but once they conquered all of India, they made it into the British Raj. So they made it all into one. Because since the British conquered all of India, the every all the people in India had gained nationalism. If the British haven't conquered all of India, there would have been so many different countries in India representing different cultures. The British united them through politically. For example, when the British colonized the United States, there's different colonies like New York, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. And if it weren't for the fact they were all British under a British rule, then the USA would have never been united. They almost didn't. Um, and if they were all revolted at the same time, the states would have been their own countries. So it was like the fact that they were all everywhere, every Indian was under British rule, made them unite into common cause against British. Be like, well, the British Empire. Be like, okay, we want our own country, and we're gonna make our own country, and it will be India to unite all the Indians. Um, but if the British were never there, there's no unifying factor, because the fact that the British was occupying them was the reason why they formed India.
In terms of its political geography, Albania is located in the South Balkan region, right north of
Powder keg of Europe. The powder keg. That's what they call the Balkans. I guess the region of Congo was a princely state back then. Well, let me show you a map of India before British rule. Is this a good map? Look, there's so many different countries, empires, and kingdoms, and they would all, because there's no such thing as one Indian nationality. There's nationality, but culture in India. You don't have. There's so many different cultures that could actually, in India, that like the fact that they're united is crazy. But they all united. They all united because they didn't like the British. Be like, because the British conquered all of them, and then actually gave them the sense of nationality. Be like, and basically taught them inadvertently how to unite and revolt. It's like Germany. Germany used to be so many countries. Let me show you. Germany before unific. This is actually a good example. Images. Before modern day Germany, there are so many countries. No, that's not even a good one. HRE. Holy Roman Empire. Look how many countries. Look how many. If it weren't for the fact that Prussia, the kingdom of Prussia conquered all of them and said, we're all Germans, we all speak German, and we all are ethnically German. Let's make one country. That's how Germany was formed. And they didn't conquer them, actually. They fought France and united them against France, similarly to how Indians united to go against Britain. Prussia united all the German kingdoms and states against France and said, you know what, France is a big enemy of ours. Why don't we all unite to one country and fight against France? Because France was an empire at the time, Second French Empire. So it was similar to India, how they all united against the British occupation so that they can make their own country. And I think their biggest unifying factor is that most of them are Hindu. Yeah.
Greece, south of Montenegro, west of Macedonia, and Kosovo, even though Serbia will tell you that Kosovo is totally not Kosovo and it's just part of Serbia, but we'll discuss
Yeah, there's a lot of Albanians in Kosovo. I think Kosovo is actually Muslim majority.
that in another video, and off the coast of the Ionian and the Adriatic Seas. Now when it comes to Albania's borders, it almost kind of looks like every single country surrounding Albania is trying to take as much coastline away as they can from Albania. In
There's like Croatia and Bosnia.
the south, Greece is like, I'm just gonna take these extra 10 miles of beach. In the north, Montenegro's like, I'm just gonna take the entire
Have a good one.
Buna River. And even inland, Macedonia is like, I'm just gonna take the majority of the Prespa and Ohrid lakes and access to those lakes. Albania doesn't really get much regard. Now, unlike many of its neighbors that
During the Cold War, Albania used to side with the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union was like crazy. But then some issues between them diplomatically broke up. So they actually allied itself with China because at the time China and the Soviet Union weren't getting along. And if you watch, one movie is, I think it's called War Dogs. They actually show War Dogs. Yeah, War Dogs. Where there's a scene where they would see, War Dogs is basically a movie about how these two guys would sell arms to the U.S. Army, and one part of the so they're trying to sell arms and ammunition to the U.S. Army in Iraq. And so in order to get it cheap, they went to Albania and they found Chinese manufactured bullets, ammunition, and in Albania, and then used that and sold it to the and disguised it so it didn't look Chinese, because selling the U.S. isn't allowed to buy Chinese ammunition and everything. So it was illegal for them to sell it to them, but they still did and made money off of it. And they got found out and got arrested and everything. And that's what the movie is about.
Mediterranean. Albania doesn't really have many islands that border its coastline. In fact,
Albania has a lot of abandoned forts from the Cold War and World War II. A lot. That's why I know.
there are only about 7 to 10-ish islands, most of which are small, uninhabited, or barely inhabited, like Tongo and Stilo Island in the south, which each only have one house on them, and most of the other ones are basically barely even the size of an IKEA. However, a lot of them do have a lot of cool historical ancient sites and landmarks on them, such as Ali Pasha Castle on
Ali Pasha, that's from the Ottoman Empire, because Pasha is what you call, for example, I have an uncle, and I call him Pasha because he's older than me. I respect him. That's like calling someone uncle, you know? But it's also used for a government official. Hold up. Sorry, that was my mom. She asked me if I wanted to eat. And Ali is a common Muslim name.
Trint and the 13th century monastery on Zvenes Island, except for one, Sazan Island. Sazan Island has actually played a very crucial role in Albania's history. It was taken over by the Romans, and then the Byzantines, and the Ottomans, and the Greeks, and the Italians, and the British, and the Greeks, but the Greeks didn't want it again, so they gave it to the Italians. And then the Italians finally gave it to Albania. It's a long story. To this day, Sazan Island is the only somewhat inhabited island, as the people living there are only there to maintain the former military bases that were built. In terms of its physical geography, Albania is about 70% mountainous, with about 25% of the land being arable for agriculture and farming, which, by the way, is a sector that employs about half of the entire population of Albania. Albanians take their agriculture...
Albania is a developing economy. It's not a less developing country. It's still a developing country, in where they're slowly but surely that the agriculture will move. People in agriculture and farms will slowly move to the cities and everything to get better jobs and pay. So they're still developing compared to most of Europe, developed Europe, where most people live in cities than farms, and most jobs are not agriculture.
Very seriously. In fact, for a while, they were completely closed off from the rest of the world and self-reliant. In addition to
thing is about self-reliant countries. India used to be self-reliant. North Korea is still self-reliant, where it's a closed economy. One benefit I would see in a self-reliant country, and I think the only benefit, is when you look into yourself, look into your own infrastructure, build everything, like build healthcare, everything by yourself. Then when you open your economy, I think the economy starts blowing up. Like only if you invest in every aspect. Sorry, that was my sister. So back to what I was saying, if you invest in your infrastructure and healthcare and then begin to open your economy, then you will see a blow up. For example, China and Vietnam, they used to be a communist country and they would provide healthcare to its citizens and everything in their closed economy. Then they begin to open their economy. It went crazy. I feel like that's how it starts, you know?
Fruits and
They
vegetables.
call it intrusive economy. When you start with the intrusive economy, where they focus on everything inside, then you transition into extrusive economy. Um, then you begin to change into like then your economy begins to develop. And you go crazy like, and you could I read this in a book. I think it's the Fall of Nations or Nations. I forgot the word. How Nations Fall, I think, or Fail. How Nations Fail. It's a good book. You should really read it.
Another produce. One thing that Albanians really like to grow: tobacco. They just do. Now Albania is also loaded with a bunch of other types of landscapes like rolling green hills and lush forests and very nice warm temperate beaches such as the ones at Samil and Durres.
Like nice
Speaking
place.
of which, interesting factoid, if you go to Albania, pretty much everywhere around the entire country you'll notice these World War II concrete war bunkers located everywhere. The reason being because in the middle of the 20th century, the old communist leader Enver Hoxha took over and built these war bunkers, about 700,000 of them, and placed them all over the country as a means for militaristic preparation.
But no
Now, of course, that costed the country a lot of money that they pretty much didn't have, and it was a poor investment because they never really needed them. However, to this day, it's almost like a little I Spy game. When you go to Albania, see how many bunkers you can find. Now, in terms of its demographics, about 85%, the vast majority of people in Albania identify as ethnically Albanian. Now, there are some minorities like Greeks and Macedonians and Montenegrins as well. The vast majority of people in Albania also speak the Albanian language, which is one of the most distinguishable facets of this country. The Albanian language to this day relates to no other Indo-European language branch in the world. It's
There's a Basque language is also hey, welcome to my stream. We're reacting to geography now. We're on Albania now. We were doing Afghanistan before. Like I was saying, Albanian language isn't connected to the tree, like he was saying.
Albanian language to this day relates to no other Indo-European language.
And that is also for Basques, because Basques in Spain, they do not have no connection to the tree, and I think they've been there before any other European culture or thing. They're there since the beginning, and no one knows where their origins are from.
Language branch in the world. It stands alone as its own, and it's a very unique language. Albania also has a very interesting faith-based background. About 60% of the people identify as non-denominational or secular Muslim, and about 20% identify as Christian, mostly Catholic.
That is because of it used to be completely Christian until the Ottoman Turks conquered Albania, and they would slowly convert. And they wouldn't do forced conversions. Well, it was technically forced, but it was like not in you convert or you'll die, like how the Spanish Inquisition was. They were like, okay, if you want to pay more taxes, you can keep your religion, but you don't. If you to convert to Islam, then you don't have to pay these taxes. They're called jizya taxes. Or they would have janissaries, and they would children of and like Catholic and Christian families would send their kids to sign up for janissary, and the kids would grow up to become Muslim soldiers of the Khalifa or Caliph, and they actively would send their kids because of how high of a position it was. They would get money, they would get status as a janissary, and it was a highly prominent position for them. So they got benefits, and that's why you see a lot of conversions happening.
Or Orthodox. Although historically, Albania at one point banned all religious freedom and was declared the very first atheist state in the entire world.
That's because communism. Communism doesn't support religion. It supports communism. Religion for communist countries is like is against the state and the government for them. And in order for in their ideology, communist ideology, religion is just a hindrance to progress.
During the
which is not entirely true.
Communist regime until 1992. Interesting side note, in Albania they shake their head to say yes and they nod their head to say no.
I did not know that. That's crazy. That would be so confusing.
The friend zone. This is where things get a little interesting because historically Albania has probably been one of the most socially awkward countries in the world. Shortly after Albania was relinquished from the Ottoman Empire, Albania kind of went through a few decades of not exactly quite knowing how to be Albania again. And that's when the Soviets came in.
Yep,
For a while, Albania was part of the Soviet bloc. However, during the Sino-Soviet split,
Sino-Soviet split was when the communist countries of Soviet Union and China stopped being friends.
And something we will
like I said earlier,
discuss.
Albanians sided with China, which is weird because Russia was right by them. But Albania sided with China, and every other communist country sided with the Soviet Union.
All that drama in another video, Albania actually decided to side with China and not Russia, which strategically may have been a bad decision.
Yeah,
the reason being because that made China Albania's only ally in the world. And it can get kind of hard when your only ally in the world isn't even close to you geographically.
Yeah.
And to add on top of that, in the 70s, China was kind of like, look, Albania, it was cute how you wanted to tag along, but you're on your own. And then Albania had no allies. In the last few years of communism and following the death of Enver Hoxha, Albania kind of saw what was going on and they were like, yeah, we kind of need to turn things around. And finally, in 1990, the communism regime ended, making Albania a constitutional republic. This opened up a lot of doors. And from the 90s up until today,
That's okay. Have a good one. Thanks for stopping by.
Albania has become one of the most social countries in the world, opening up its arms, trying to regain as many diplomatic relations as it can with as many countries, and to this day has about 40 embassies in 40
If you don't mind, please follow. Comment, all that junk.
different countries. Albania is not a social butterfly. Albania is a social pterodactyl. They even named a street after George W. Bush after he visited there one time.
Wow, I didn't. That's funny. I never knew that.
In 2007. Interesting side note, there's an early episode of The Simpsons in which Bart signs up for a foreign exchange student program and goes to France, whereas the Simpson family receives an exchange student named Adil from Albania.
Adil. Well, that's how we pronounce it in Uzbek. That's actually not a Muslim name, but a Turkish, Uzbek, Turkic name. I didn't know the people. I guess there's a lot of influence from the Turks into Albania because of that. I mean, they became Muslim because of the Turks, but also because you see things like Adil, Hoxha. Hoxha is also a Muslim name. Actually, I have family that Khwaja that derives. So a religious person, you would say Hoxha. They're Hoxha. They're very knowledgeable.
The episode was filmed in 1990, right before the fall of communism in Albania, and lightly portrays the tensions between Americans and Soviet-influenced nations back in that time. In terms of its best friend, Albania would probably consider
Please do not try posting YouTube videos and everything, because I don't know where it goes to. So I try not looking at links. I don't. It's not like I just don't want to. I just started streaming. I don't want to try anything out. I'll look at this later. Actually, I could check before accidentally showing whatever it is. Twitch. Do. I can't do it. Copy. Control C. I'm just checking to see if this would new tab.
Jeffrey Pinepooter was arrested for mopping the floor with his brother's head that got tangled on a foot massaging Asian.
Okay, I don't get that video. It's not bad, thank God. But I'm not gonna react to that. Maybe I'll try to do a try not to laugh, and maybe I'll put that in. Let's see.
Kosovo their best friend, considering that the vast majority of people in Kosovo are Albanians.
Yeah,
Gotta
Albanians.
support your brothers. In conclusion, Albania may have been that little reserved, quiet kid, and yeah, maybe they made a few bad decisions here and there historically, but they really started to turn things around, and you gotta give that for them. Stay tuned, Algeria is coming up
Algeria.
next.
That's something. That's interesting. Let's put that next. Algeria.
Now just remember, when going to Algeria, no matter how much French these people speak to you, do not call them French.
Yes, Algeria and France. Oh my God, there are so many atrocities on both sides because Algeria during decolonization after World War II was one of the few countries that actually fought with their mother country, master country, in order to gain independence, and it was brutal. And they're still discovering atrocities every day that was caused man, the French, crazy. Like, I don't like the country of France nowadays. I like when they were under Napoleon, because they do not give a damn if you're not French. They don't give a damn about you. Like, they do whatever they want to you, and I don't like that. Like, the French has committed so many atrocities that we don't even know.
It's time to learn geography.
The British too, but the British at least acknowledge it nowadays. For example, Prince Charles and all of them were just talking about how slavery and how, like, it was the biggest sham and everything. Well, France was like, no, we're not acknowledging that we did that. For example, they ruined Haiti, and I don't think they still acknowledge what they did and how bad they ruined Haiti.
Hey everybody, I'm your host Paul Barbado. Today we're going to talk about Algeria. Let's dissect the flag. The flag of Algeria is pretty simple, just white, green, and a red crescent and star. The white representing peace, the green representing Islam, and the crescent and star not only representing Islam, but the red of the crescent and star also representing the blood of those who fought for Algeria. By the way, full disclaimer, you're going to start to kind of see a pattern going on of a lot of countries using red on their flags to represent the blood of those spilled for who fought for something.
Also, green, if you see a lot of green, usually especially if it's the Middle East, it means it's Islam.
Just a little heads up. As of right now, Algeria is the largest country in all of Africa. That title
Yeah, but it's mostly you can't. It's mostly desert, Saharan desert, so you can't live.
used to belong to Sudan. However, back in 2011, Sudan split up into two separate countries, decreasing their landmass and giving that title over to Algeria. Algeria is located in the North African region known as the Maghreb, which is basically every North African country west of Egypt. Algeria is also surrounded by 6 other countries in the area, although the Sahrawi people will tell you that Western Sahara is totally a separate country and it belongs to them, but we'll discuss that a little bit later in this video. And lucky enough, in the north, Algeria borders the Mediterranean Sea, which has played a huge crucial role in its nationalistic development and import-export economy.
Yeah, most developed cities and everything that is associated with Algeria, like I think Algiers is right here, around here. Most of what you'll see is around here. Everything else, it's very undeveloped, and it's mostly in the coast.
In fact, out of all the 48 provinces of Algeria, over 90% of the entire population lives in the upper 37
Yeah, mostly in the coast.
provinces that border the
most of it's uninhabitable desert.
Mediterranean Sea.
I mean, there's some parts that you could go. I know some. I forgot what it was called, but there's a town here and everything.
The remaining 10% living in the lower provinces,
Yeah.
which take up a landmass that is about 7 times the size of all the upper 37 provinces combined. Some of these provinces, like Tindouf and M.I.T.Z, although huge, barely even have 50,000 people inhabiting them. Now, why do so many people want to live in the north part of Algeria and not the south? We're going to answer that question in physical geography. If you look at a satellite map of Algeria, you'll notice that pretty much the only green part is in the north by the Tel Atlas mountain range. The reason being that this is pretty much the only region of Algeria that has a somewhat mild and wetter climate. And even though this region only takes up a small slice of the entire territory of Algeria, it is so crucial to these people. Only about 3% of Algeria's land is arable.
Yeah.
That's not enough for them to sustain themselves agriculturally. And to this day, about 45% of their food comes from imports. Pretty much.
Also, they do have oil in Algeria, so they make money from that oil. But another part of French, I don't like France. Another part of France decolonization, French companies and I think Dutch companies too own a bunch of oil, own the exportation and the manufacture and the refining and the exporting of oil in Algeria.
Everything south of the Tel Atlas mountain range is Saharan desert. If you really look at this region, you'll notice communities and towns like Regane, Adrar, where they are actually kind of thriving and flourishing. The reason is because, like many other people groups in the Sahara, these people have mastered the art of desert agriculture.
You see a lot of that, especially when in the Saharan desert, and throughout history. So you have traders who travel between those, and they will be masters. Berbers and I forgot the certain group that does it too. Berbers is just the general population though of Maghreb, but for example, the Mali Empire, where Mansa Musa owned, they would trade through there.
Is there still only
And what's it called? Sorry, that was my sister. But they would, because they had a lot of gold and salt, and they would trade that using through the Sahara using experts in that area who could travel.
You might see these skid mark looking things right next to the towns, and you might ask yourselves, what are these things? Well, if you look a little closer, those are actually date palm groves. And you'd be surprised, if you look in the right place, you might actually be able to find a lot of underground water sources or oases or maybe even a lake or two in the Sahara. It's not completely devoid of water sources. Algeria has also completed the daunting task of building
Sahara actually wasn't, the Saharan desert wasn't always there. I think it was a shift in the earth from the axis. So this it used to be like it didn't used to look like a desert, and it used to be like a forest and stuff like that. Like it's kind of like sub-Saharan Africa. But when the earth shifted its axis, tilted, the sun rays hit more there and they became a desert.
Several trans-Saharan roadways.
And the desert is still expanding. Sub-Saharan countries are actually trying to prevent that by planting more trees around and to prevent more the desert to expand.
Go throughout the entire Saharan desert into their southern neighbor countries such as Niger, Mali, and Mauritania. The people in this region can be very interesting. So interesting that we're going to talk about it in demographics! Algeria has about 37 million people, or roughly a little bit more than the size of Canada. You know, I think I'm probably going to end up using Canada a lot in terms of population comparison in this series, but The vast majority of these people identify as ethnically Arab Berber. For those of you who don't know, the Berbers
and Arabs are not the same, but Arab invasion of North Africa allowed a lot of Arabic because they all speak Arabic. Algerians speak French too, but that's because of colonization. But most of them speak Arabic. Berbers are people before the Arab conquest. Berbers used to live in Maghreb, in the Maghreb mostly, and they were like, I think they have their own language too, but they did become Muslim, and a lot of Arabs migrated there, so a lot of people spoke Arabic after.
Are a semi-nomadic people group who have historically occupied the region of the Maghreb for thousands of years prior to any empire or colonial occupation or modern day countries.
But they were influenced though.
establishment. The Berbers are a fascinating people group that have their own culture, history, and language, and in fact, to this day, about a third of Algerians speak the Berber language. In fact, Algeria is one of the only 2 countries in the world that considers Berber a national language. Not quite official. Morocco is the only one that makes it official. However, Algerians really do recognize it. However, Berber is so prevalent in many regions of Algeria that you shouldn't be surprised to see
It's similar how the USA, there's no official language for the United States, but the dominant language is English and Spanish.
Signs posted up all over the place in Arabic, French, and Berber. In fact, some of the Berbers in Algeria are also Sahrawi. Now, what does that mean? Sahrawis are basically people who believe that Western Sahara is theirs and it should belong to them, and that it should become an independently recognized sovereign nation under their jurisdiction. See, after Spain left in 1975, the jurisdiction of
I think only Western countries such as the USA and Europe recognize it as an independent country, but I feel like I'm pretty sure technically it's not, because I think Morocco is occupying them right now or something like that.
Western Sahara pretty much went into the hands of Morocco and Mauritania. Unfortunately, there was a third party that was not too happy with that, the Sahrawis. Eventually, the Polisario Front was established, or the Liberation Movement for the Sahrawi people in Western Sahara, and they fought against both Mauritania and Morocco. Eventually, Mauritania backed down, and Morocco somehow was able to take control of most of the major cities and resources, and to this day...
I think they own most of the coast. So they're right now dwelling in the... I think it's still a war, too.
Remains kind of under autonomous control under Morocco, but the Sahrawis kind of take over the eastern part.
Someone's calling. Oh, right. So I'm going to have to end the stream soon because I have to go somewhere. But
it's complicated. Where Algeria comes into play? Well, Algeria kind of gives refuge to the whole Polisario Front in the very western city of Tindouf. After all the drama with Morocco and Mauritania, the only place that the Sahrawis really had left to go was Algeria. You can imagine how that kind of probably made Morocco feel. Which brings us to our next segment, the friend zone. Now, when it comes to Algeria,
I'm guessing Morocco and Algeria aren't good friends because of that.
They generally get along with all the other countries in the Maghreb region, but when it comes to the Polisario Front thing, it causes kind of a little bit of tension between them and Morocco. Algeria is a strong supporter of the Sahrawi independence movement, and Morocco just is not. Now, in terms of business, Greece has always been one of the...
why Morocco is obsessed with that is because of exclusive trade zone, or I forgot what the full name was, official, but if they are recognized as controllers of that region, they have greater access to the sea and trade routes, and they can make more money.
Their top trade partners. It also has friendly relations with Cyprus, as it supports the Cyprus side of the Cyprus reunification movement, which doesn't really jive too well with Turkey. Now, when it comes to France, things get a little interesting. See, in the early 1800s, France occupied and settled Algeria and pretty much made it an overseas dependency. Over the next century,
later into, like, France controlled that part of Algeria for so long, they actually made it part of France, not as a actual colony. They recognized it as actually part of France because there's so many French people.
Of their occupation, France greatly influenced the culture, the architecture, the cuisine, and even the language. To this day, French is the de facto language of Algeria.
Like lingua franca.
However, as you can guess, like most countries in former European colonial empires, Algeria started to kind of fight back. However, after independence, the Algerians kind of realized that the French influence had really permeated their culture so much that they kind of didn't exactly want to completely cut off the French altogether. And despite the drama and historical animosity, Algerians and the French have a relatively well diplomatic relationship today. It's almost kind of like the USA and England. Now, in terms of their closest
I
relationship...
wouldn't say that. USA and England are good friends, but still animosity between them. It's like friends being like you're friends with somebody, but then they backstab you, and then you guys make up, but you're still making up. not making it. You're still making up, but like you're still like tension a little bit
Algeria more
because the memory's still there.
or less might consider Tunisia and Libya their best friends, considering that both countries support the Sahrawi independence movement, and historically they've had a very rich and cultural similarity and resonance with each other. So in conclusion, Algeria isn't just another North African country, but it's a country that stands for things and survives and builds roads across the desert. You gotta give it to them. Plus they got really good food there. Thanks for watching. Andorra is coming next.
Okay, Andorra is gonna be next stream, so I'm gonna do that next in a later date, maybe tomorrow actually. So thank you for streaming. Thank you for viewing my stream. Thank you for everything, and have a good one. Make sure you follow. And for my YouTube viewers, like, subscribe, and comment, and whatever. And yeah, have a good one.